I guess I will kick off the afternoon by introducing our next speaker, the first one of the afternoon. So Corso Dominici, if I'm saying it right, on multicentric economies of pre-Roman Italy. So thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here, and thank you so much to the organizer. It's been fantastic. Okay, I hope it works. So this is what I'm presenting today, is a part of my PhD research. And I'm still a PhD student for a few weeks more. So bear with me if it's PhD level things, in any case. So I'm going to talk about Central Italy here, and I'm going to talk about Central Italy between 600 and 400 BC, which is the moment in which we have what we call the urbanization process. I call them processes because I think there are more than one in time and space. These are a few of the cities or towns or settlements that are actually famous in the area. And this is said to be a pre-monetary society, and I think I'm going to be a little bit critical on this definition, obviously, because I think it's more the case of a semi-monetary society to me. But the thing is, when I was reading about it, I thought that was interesting, because what does it mean to be part of a pre-monetary society? That was my question. Now, semi-monetary society, because there are places that are minting coins from the 5th century BC, namely Populonia. So among these cities, just Populonia. Then there is another city, which is Cere, if I'm correct, in the south of Tuscany. And also, this is a coin from Populonia. And also, we do have, obviously, other types of coins in the places of Etruria, which are found almost in many places of this area that we have seen. But I'm not going to talk about them, and I'm not an expert about them. I will speak a little bit about them at the end, because I'm going to talk about actually pottery, and namely ugly pots, because this is what I do. And pottery that usually you find everywhere, but people don't study because it's too ugly, either because it is in the shape of a shard, or because it's just too ugly. And this is actually, if you are actually bringing them, all the shards together, and you have these sort of objects. And I was asking myself, I mean, I have ever wondered how valuable these things were? And this is more or less what was at the back of this presentation. So, again, the question was, what does it mean to be part of a pre-monetary society? And I was asking specifically, what does it entail for the diffusion of objects? And also for their production. And I am kind of playing a trick here, because I'm talking about craft and exchange, which by yesterday's definition of economy are the definition of economy. But I'm talking about them as a social activity. So I'm talking about the society bit of the craft and exchange. And I am being very cheeky, because I'm talking about them together. So I'm not going to split necessarily them at the moment. So craft and exchange are performed socially, and they therefore descriptive of some aspects of society. And I have used archaeological methodologies such as the chaîne opératoire and the topographic method of investigation to address these things on the land. And then, since they are social activities, I have used anthropological tools to interpret them, to interpret my results. So yes, it's going to be very culturally relativistic. I apologize. And but yes, I have used some of the readings and others that Elon has already shown in his talk. Now, I want to say something about the topographic method, because it's not something as those of landscape archaeologists, is something more focused on highlighting meaningful patterns in material culture in a specific territory. And by studying all the coeval sites in that territory, and these sites are considered a context. So, because they're coeval and the premises of one another, they were interacting with each other. So this interaction is something that may be found in the archaeological data, and this is at the premises of everything in the topographic method, which is a method that has been developed in Italy, but used in Germany as well, sometimes in England. It's a little bit different from landscape archaeology. It's a bottom-up method, which I really like, personally. And then, as anthropological theories of value, I have been using mainly these four works. Now, obviously, David Graeber, we already have spoken about him. This is the 2014 version of the 2011 book. This is the second chapter, The Myth of Barter, that to me started more or less everything. That's where I jumped into Paul Bohannan, of which I've already spoke about. And Paul Bohannan has been the beginning of my research in this kind of pre-monetized societies. And, well, semi-monetized societies, if I have to use my own definition. But then Igor Kopitov and Alfred Gell have been very, very influential. Fantastic works in any case. So, but I'm cheating again, because I'm not actually speaking about cities. I'm speaking about this area here. This is my case studies. It's a very marginal area. No one really studies it. And I didn't want to jump on the feet of any other researcher in Italy. So I picked this area because it was discrete. I could actually assess it on my own without having to answer to anybody but my supervisor. And this is it. So this is Casentino and Valtiberina, these two valleys. I mean, you may know Valtiberina because that's where the Tiber River actually springs. And the Casentino is the upper part of the River Arno Valley. Now, all these dots that look like, I mean, again, this is the area. All these dots that look like little chicken pox is actually my sites. The bigger dots are excavation sites. The smaller dots are find spreads. This is my context. These are interacting sites because they are coeval, okay? Now, the other big feature of these sites is that they're mainly settlements, which I love. I only have a few graves, but these are houses, settlements where people lived, okay? 600 to 400 BC. We are told by scholarship that the urbanization processes took away people from the countryside to bring them to the city. This is not what I find here. But no one looks at the countryside. Anyway, I wanted to discover whether there were any meaningful patterns in the distribution of different production techniques in Casentino and Valtiberina, starting from the ugly pots, obviously. And that's why I used the chaîne opératoire approach. And I have assessed those sites that could have a depth from the 600 to the 400s, which are the ones in red, except a very beautiful site that I could not assess, which is Pieve Socana, which is a temple. I could not assess it because I didn't have time. And this is more or less my material. So I have assessed the 100% of the ceramic material, which is coincidentally also the 100% of the material from the sites, of all ceramic classes. It's 3 tons of ceramic, and I was criticized by grouping all ceramic together, but there you go. And more or less, these boxes, this is what they contain. And if you bring these pieces together, again, you have this sort of finds over here. And my methodology is based on this book. It's a fantastic book from Valentin Roux and Maria Agnès Courty. I apologize for my French. From 2019, Ceramics and Society, 40 years of anthropological, ethno-anthropological study on the techniques of production of pottery. And whoever is, many of you, obviously, familiar with chaîne opératoire, this is how it looks like. You find your actions. Actions have traces. You trace these traces to find the actions, to find the technique in all the several phases. So from these branches, from this book, I then drafted mine, and this is one of the pages of my branches. I have actually just 3 of them, but actually many actions. And since I wanted to be, again, kind of independent and up and running, I focused on what I could actually assess by direct autopsy. and this means focusing on the fashioning. So obviously, in the phases of production of pottery, there is clay sorting and there is firing that change the chemical, physical-chemical properties of the objects. And you can actually study those better with archaeometry, obviously. What I did is actually a direct autopsy, at the most with a geologist lens, to assess the traces of actions of the fashioning, because those I could. I also assessed a little bit of clay sorting and firing, those that could be assessed by direct autopsy. So, long story short, this is a single context from a site. I grouped them all, the pieces that have the same kind of traces of actions and in the chaîne opératoire, and these were my samples. And basically with these I drafted an Excel sheet with 57 variables, yes or no, was the actions performed or not, basically. So 0 and 1's values. And this again is the archaeological context, and this is the sample. So each little group here in each table is just like a group of objects that had like signs of similar actions in their making. And I wanted to know the different techniques of production, right? So I had 24/9 samples that were actually good enough to do a cluster analysis. And with 249 samples, I actually found, through this cluster analysis, 48 techniques of production. And these are shown as here, with their identifiers. So all these different names are identifiers. And as you can see, the grouping is actually mainly to what kind of rotating device is used, what kind of kinetic energy is used for producing them. So you have, everyone knows it, the wheel, which is the fast wheel, in this case, and then the turntable, which is the slow wheel, and then the rotary device, which is basically the hand. You don't rotate the surface, you rotate the object with your hand. So you don't harness kinetic energy in producing that. And this division, it's my own interpretation of the objects, and especially the difference between wheel and turntable is actually very feeble. If I have to do this thing again, I would have not make any difference between fast and slow, because honestly, only very seldom is actually possible to do that. I didn't know back then, so I make this division. Placet experiri, as the ancients said. Again, what could I actually do? Of the fashioning, I was able to basically focus on roughing out, performing, and surface treatment. Finishing was not possible because it was overlapped by surface treatment. And decoration was not there because mainly my pottery was ugly pots. So I had literally no decoration, but in one side. And I loved that. Because we find like our museums are full of those fantastically decorated stuff, but the back side of the museums are full of my stuff. Anyway, so whatever. Yeah, I was able to, again, to find rotary device, turntable, and wheel. The tracing of actions here, mainly, those are the main actions that I found. For the roughing out is pinching and coiling. Coiling is absolutely paramount. For performing pressing and scraping, and beating and paddling. The difference is between using a tool or not using a tool. And for surface treatment, burnishing and coating with clay. And again, I mean, if you want to see a little bit more about these traces, I can tell you a bit more about it later on because I want to carry on. I don't want to speak forever. So if you're curious, you can ask. I wanted to know if actually actions were responsible for the function of the object itself. What is the bridging between what the potter wanted to do and what the potter have done and what the user is using the object to do with that. And so in order to do so, I actually used my cluster analysis to then develop a multi-dimensional scaling analysis to understand which variable impacted the most on the technical process among my samples. And this is what I found. Again, this thing is going to be changed if I will publish it, so bear with me. I found that these 48 different techniques of production could be grouped into different, 4 different technical groups of families of techniques that are similar and they have similar features in the, what we say, I don't know, design choices of the makers, okay? And again, the big difference here is between the use of tools, up and then not use of tools, and between the you harnessing rotating kinetic energy or not, because these were some of the big traces that could actually be found on the pieces. And now why I'm talking about this, because this group speak about, in a way, this group speak about, in a way, about the value of standardization, which is what I found here is the opposite of what we have talked about so far. Because I have that these techniques go from intuitive to standardized, controlled, and specialized. So specialized actions are here. So this is the most standardized sort of things that use the most advanced techniques, I would say. You also have the bucchero here, which is the pottery production in, how do you say, oxidizing? No, the opposite. Reducing, yeah, thank you so much. Reducing atmosphere, which are difficult techniques. And, but the objects are all standardized on this side, the shape of the objects. And now, this is not a technical progress, because what I found is that all technical groups are used in the same phase, in the same sites, often in the same archaeological context. Instead, again, I would say that action shapes function. So I found out that, for instance, kitchenware and storageware is made with all the different technical groups, but especially with group 1. The pithoi are only using group 2, 3, and 4 techniques. The fineware, group 3 and group 4, which, if I had to redo this thing again, would have been a 1 group only. So, bear with me. We shall return on this later, because I want to speak about a little bit about theory at the moment. Again, so semi-monetary society. Why am I bridging between the production, the exchange, in this case, in semi-monetary society? Because the things were actually interconnected. And now, anthropology, semi-monetary societies are known as multicentric economies. And this is something that Elon spoke about, because the study that was started by Bohanna in 1955 actually was carried on, and until today is something that is considered absolutely viable to describe economies that don't use mainly exchange through coins, okay? So this is an important feature, because these are descriptive of societal processes still to this very day. So a socioeconomic system, again, what it is, based on a multiple exchange categories that are culturally defined, and this is the most problematic bit, I would say. They're separated from one another, yet interdependent. This is the definition of Bohannan. So these exchange categories are known as spheres of exchange, and absence of a general purpose in currency form, such as money, is one of their features. And the presence of special currencies that many of you know very well and better than me. So bear with me if I speak about them. And in this case, such as token or ingots, they were said like this. Now, the spheres of exchange that have been drafted by Bohannan are mainly 3. We got a spheres of subsistence. They include foodstuff, hens, pigs, goats, and household goods, which are highlighted here because pottery is an household good, locally produced and exchanged directly. And then spheres of wealth. Now, the sphere of subsistence is actually usually one big sphere. The spheres of wealth are many. And usually they include ore, weapons, artistic objects, slaves, cattle, horses, wheat, olive oil, wine, so even foodstuff. And every item that is difficult to produce, difficult to come by because it's actually from elsewhere, or it requires material that is made elsewhere or harvested elsewhere or whatever. And they exchange directly with one another or with the use of special purpose coins, such as, in this case, copper bars or small lumps of metal, but also quantities of precious fabric, and I will argue also minted coin. And then the third sphere, which is something that I'm not going to really speak about because it's a lot more complex, but it's important, which is the sphere of rights in people, in which there are some other different kinds of items of exchange, which are the social interactions. And they're often considered the most valuable items, but they are accessible to everyone in society, even to the poor people. And they include hospitality, rules, trading treaties as well, marriages, alliances among families, and the passing on of knowledge, even literacy then. And I think this is important because the role of literacy, even in archaic societies, is actually quite secluded among the people of a polity, for instance. So, disclaimer: the spheres of exchange are not an institution, but a conceptual construct that is useful for the study and definition of behaviors that are complex, adaptable, self-sustaining, and contingent. Now, this is important because they work in institutions. In fact, some anthropologists have studied the spheres of exchange in our own society. For instance, Igor Kopytov and everything that other people have done after him. And one of the main features I want to speak about, and are important to remember, are that spheres are impermeable. So trading cannot happen between the spheres of subsistence and the rest. You cannot exchange, you cannot barter everything for everything. You won't exchange your birthday right for a dish of lentils, to use a biblical reference, unless in very specific special circumstances, like a famine. So, for instance, a beautiful object from the Lake of Idols, which is a sanctuary in Casentino, is an object of art, cannot be exchanged, obviously, with my ugly pots, no matter the amount of the ugly pots. The same can be said from another object from the same sanctuary, which is one of the many thousands of iron spearheads that's been found there, or one of the many thousands Etruria that have been found there. So these things are not possible because they're from different spheres of exchange. Subsistence is the big difference. Now, the other thing that I think is important, and that what is reconnect again with the Scène-opératoire study and the technical study, is the cultural value of things. And here I'm showing to you two of the most handsome men in the history of anthropology, I would say, Alfred Gell and Igor Kopytov, again, because they have been actually developing the meaning of cultural value of things up to this very day. So this is something that we usually do ourselves without realizing it, giving a value to things. And there are like some elements of this value that we give to things, they're actually cultural. So what Alfred Gell has said, for instance, is that he has focused on what is the importance of expertise, the maker's expertise. And this, again, is why I'm talking about the making, because skill has a value, and specialized skill, what we call specialized skill, has an even more value. And I think this comes into play in the standardization of objects, because for a skilled maker, if you are a potter, the more skilled you are, the more you are able to make the same object over and over and over, which is the opposite of what we think about when thinking about standardization. Well, Igor Kopytov was thinking of how the cultural value changes slowly or very fastly, even up to the history of an object, what he called the biography of an object. So this is what we're talking about as well. So in each sphere, the value of items is culturally attributed. Rules may be written down at some point, and this is important, but they're based always on more widely shared cultural behaviors. This is also important, because this aspect grants the possibility of exchange even between non-neighboring communities. And here, sorry, but I think about the Mediterranean interconnectivity. So thinking about the Mediterranean as a place of, I don't know, cultural behaviors that were shared, mostly. Not obviously, to the point. And spheres of exchange do change in time as the cultural value of things change, and also thanks to the introduction of technical innovations. So once I had my techniques of production, I then plotted them. I made my topographer move. I plot the things on a map to see if there were any meaningful patterns. And so what I found is this, that the objects that were made with technical groups 1 and 2 have very localized sharing of the same kind of technique, up to the point that some techniques are just found in in just a single site. Now, the site on the top left is very cool because I studied first the objects and then the site, and I said, okay, this is a site of production. Then I read the archaeological reports and everything, and in fact, there were like signs of production in that site, and this is important. So they developed certain techniques only there. There are, and the same can be said on the other valley. And this to me is a sign of the spheres of subsistence, an archaeological evidence of that. Because I have this chart that for groups, technical groups 3 and 4, the same techniques is found everywhere. So the objects were actually made with the same techniques all over the place, standardized. And this to me is a sign of trading, spheres of wealth. And this is the first, hint of the spheres of exchange, archaeological hint of those in my area, because I have another one which comes from typological studies. So I've done the same thing, but with typology. So instead, the chaîne opératoire, proper typological study. This is my sites. These are all my comparanda. Some weird colors that will appear now, but don't worry about them. This will be handy for the next slide, because this is the grouping, the color code for the next slide. So again, I found out that the spheres of exchange in trading, so of wealth, was polarized. And first thing first, there are no typologies that are similar from this area to that area, but it's also polarized. You have some typologies that you find everywhere. Fantastic. They find everywhere in both valleys, but again, not the same typologies. But some of them are from other places. And the interesting thing is that, for instance, in the valley of the River Arno, mainly only the one up north have a established connection with typologies that are found specifically in the valley of the River Arno, while the other one it is not. So this is an interesting fact, that the spheres of trade is polarized, because when you do the same with the kitchenware, you see that everything is the same. So there is no typological difference between the settlements that I assessed, and there are unique typologies as well, which I think is cool. And this is the second hint, I think, in favor of the fact that I found archaeological evidence of the spheres of exchange. And again, I'm sorry to say, the third is the fact that there are special purpose coins, which usually are the Etruria. Again, I'm not an expert, so I will have certainly to study a lot more about this. But what I say in conclusion is this, that we may have hints of a society with a multicentric economy, and pottery may be a reliable marker of different spheres. So pottery studies still have a lot of potential if we use innovative or underuse methodologies, such as the chaîne opératoire, which is fantastic. And especially when drafting most of our economic reconstructions, we actually may have focused on just a single sphere, which is the sphere of wealth. In this sphere, exchange seems to function with phenomena akin to our market mechanisms. These mechanisms may not work for the other spheres. We need to include all the other goods in our reconstructions. So stop studying the elites. Sorry. The spheres of exchange do not make things less complex, because reality is complex, but do make sense a lot of what we have found, and even of a lot of things that have been talked about during this conference, up until now. And the difference of I don't know, what happens in certain centers, what happens in the production of certain centers and certain others, the difference in, I don't know, in different behaviors. We can talk about this later if you really want. And again, I'm very much in favor of rethinking of the role of money, coins in this case, because exchange could be made of luxury items with other luxury items. And this is something that is a social behavior that has importance as much as coins in the economy of my areas. And again, not only in the economy of my areas, because recently, actually at the EAA, one of the papers of the sessions I have organized has shown the same kind of thing happening in the suburb of Rome in imperial times. So, and again, when we talk about spheres of exchange, we talk about something that we still have but is unseen. So it's a behavior which is a social behavior. We are not used to think about economy as a social thing. Anyway, merci beaucoup.